Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is December 20th. It's basically Christmas week, and more than likely this will be the last Christmas call that we will be doing, given the information I'm going to share with you today. This will be a shorter call. For those of you calling in for the first time, I would strongly suggest you go to our call of last week, December 13th, because it has a lot of information about our trust package. I'm not going to be discussing the trust package today. We, frankly, are having a difficult time keeping up with all of the requests that we're currently getting. And again, given the information I'm going to share with you today, hopefully this will be the last time we will try to have to satisfy this surge of interest in our trust package. So let's go ahead and get into today's information, because there's a little bit to discuss here. There's not a lot, but what there is to discuss is good news. I first want to touch on the recent meeting that was held in Dubai with Iraq as the basically the guest of honor. And attending that meeting were the nations of the G7, a delegation from the EU, the World Bank, and the U.S. Treasury. Now, common sense would dictate there's absolutely no reason for a meeting of this nature to exist if Iraq is going to remain in a program rate. We know that Iraq, per square mile, could be the richest country in the world. And in order to proceed, they're going to need a currency that reflects the wealth of the country. And in my opinion, this is the reason for the meeting. I also believe, and this is just my opinion, but hang on just 1 second. Calls are coming in here. But in my opinion, they not only discussed the fact that the Iraqi dinar will be coming out of a program rate. I think they already have been informed what a Basel IV compliant program rate would be. So I think they're prepared and ready to proceed. Sudani released a statement which confirms what I just said. He said that Iraq is now entering into a transitional phase which they will add value to the IQD, that Iraq will shortly be ending the dual currency system currently in place, and that Iraq will establish a new national sovereign currency. So the word new, the word national, the word sovereign all have very specific meanings, and it could only be referring to the new currency and the new exchange rate for that currency. In addition, effective January 1st of 2024, the U.S. dollar will be outlawed for use in Iraq. Now, there are three immediate effects of this. The first is that by eliminating the dollar, they will end the corrupt arbitrage between the corrupt Iraqi officials and, of course, the Iranians, meaning they're not going to be able to profit on the spread between the official rate and the market or the street rate. Second, this will permanently end Iran's interference in Iraq, because they're not going to be able to enrich themselves any further by doing so. As a matter of fact, the only help for Iran, the only future for Iran, is for them to behave themselves so that the rial will be permitted an increase in value. And third, by outlawing the dollar, they will complete the project to collect a provisional 3-0 currency. Iraqi citizens have been hoarding that currency, and they've been exchanging it for the U.S. dollar because the U.S. dollar has a little bit better purchasing power. But now that the U.S. dollar will no longer be in use in the country, these individuals will then take that provisional 3-0 currency to the bank and deposit it in the bank. It will be exchanged for the new national sovereign currency, We will see the release of the coinage and the lower denoms, both available at the banks and in the ATM machines. The provisional 3-0 currency will, in essence, be gone, and they will be operating with the dinar as the sole coin of the realm. And all of this should happen very shortly after January 1st. Now, there are people out there, and I get emails and texts all the time saying that they believe this is going to happen before the end of the year. Certainly, if that happens, we're going to have to move quickly for all of the reasons that I've discussed repeatedly on these calls. But I'm really hopeful that this will not happen until January. Because if this happens in January, we don't have to worry about taxes until April 15th. That means we have sufficient time to compel the IRS to confirm in writing what the actual tax status of this profit from the exchange is, both in and out of a trust, and it'll also allow us to hold the currency to allow it to increase in value, which is going to happen because of the sheer velocity of people, investing in the dinar once it revalues. So we're in a very, very good place. I can't see for the life of me why this could be postponed much longer. Once the dollar is outlawed, once the dinar is the coin of the realm in Iraq, the citizens of Iraq are not going to lose all purchasing power. They're not going to stand for it, and we're going to see chaos in the streets. And I'm sure they want to avoid that. Thus far, Soudani seems to be the real deal. He means what he says what he means, he gets the job done. When there are individuals or obstacles in the way, he's been just moving them out of the way and proceeding. So I think we've come to the end of the line here. It's been a long road, and I think it's just about over. So there's really nothing more for me to say. Matter of fact, I'm not planning on doing a call next week. You might have to check in and just see if I'm on air. If I'm not on air by, say, 2 minutes after noon Eastern Standard Time, there will be no call. But as we speak right now, I don't think there will be a call. But I just wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts now that it's Christmas. And this might be the last Christmas that we're together on these calls. And I've been thinking back about the blessing we're about to receive and the fact that this is happening right around Christmas. So I want to touch on a couple of things which are completely unrelated, at least on the surface, of the issue of the dinar and the wealth that we're going to enjoy, hopefully very soon. And since it's Christmas, I have three things I want to touch on. One is an object referred to as the Shroud of Turin. I was a young man when I first learned about this thing, and it really intrigued me. And so I followed the story of the Shroud. And the reason I bring this up is because I'm a person of faith, and most people are, but I'm also a person that likes it when evidence seems to present itself which supports your faith. I'd like to be able to say, gee, no matter what, I have faith, and I wish I was that kind of person, but I'm a person that while I live by faith, I'm happy to see things that substantiate or support the things that I do believe. And one of them is the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin appeared. It's got the image of a man that had been crucified on a cloth, a loincloth. And so testing was done on this thing. The preliminary testing said that the carbon dating proved that the shroud was created around I think it was the 12th or the 13th century, so it therefore could not be the shroud that was wrapped around Christ after the crucifixion. But it was later determined that the carbon-14 testing was inaccurate because they used the edge of the shroud that had been damaged from a fire. So despite the fact that they didn't really like to do it, they had to take a piece of the shroud that had not been disturbed or destroyed or changed in any way as the result of the fire. And the result of the test was that the shroud was from the land of Judea, created around the 1st century. In addition, there were particles of plants which were indigenous only to the Judean area. So that proved that the shroud was created in the precise time and the precise place during the life of Christ. But even more importantly, it was determined that the image on the Shroud of Turin was not painted and not created synthetically. It was actually a burn on the inside of the shroud. And the scientists concluded that the only thing that could have created that image, as implausible as it sounds, was a burst of radiant light from within the shroud, meaning within the body of the deceased, Jesus Christ. So as a believer, it's helpful to me to know these things. I've got a picture of the shroud right now in my home. The second thing I'd like to mention is a movie of Ben-Hur. Everyone, I think, has probably seen the movie of Ben-Hur. My parents took me to see that movie. I guess I was about 8 years old. And, of course, it was a huge widescreen. It was a big deal. That movie really, really affected me. And so I watched it every year. Well, one year, for a reason I don't really know, I said to myself, you know what, I need to understand more about this movie. So I found out, of course, the movie came from a book written called Ben-Hur, and the author was a gentleman by the name of Lew Wallace. Well, who is Lew Wallace? Turns out that Lew Wallace was a general in the Union Army during the Civil War. After the Civil War, he was the governor of the territory of New Mexico, and after that, he was assigned as a representative to the United States to the Ottoman Empire in Constantinople, today known as Istanbul. Well, Lew was for lack of a better word, an agnostic. So he decided that since he was in the Holy Land in that area, he was going to do research of his own. Now remember, this is a man of discipline. He was an attorney, he was a general, and he was a governor. So he understood the law. He understood how things worked. So he decided he was going to do his own research. Well, after years of research, he came to the conclusion that not only did Jesus Christ exist, not only was he crucified, but that he was in fact the Son of God. Of his rationales, one of them was this. On the night of Christ's arrest, all of the apostles, save James, the youngest, went into hiding basically and denied even knowing the man of Jesus Christ. And of those 11 that denied Christ, of course, James did not deny knowing Christ. James was at the site of the crucifixion. James was spared martyrdom, as Christ alluded to, from the cross, and was imprisoned. And, of course, he wrote the Gospel of John and Revelation, two very important books. But of the 11 that denied knowing Christ, all 11 were disciples. They ministered. They preached the gospel. They were arrested. They were gruesomely tortured and martyred. And Lew Wallace's question is, as a thinking man, as an attorney, as a scholar, said, what would possess 11 men who denied even knowing Jesus Christ to suffer torture and martyrdom? And the only plausible explanation between those events is that those 11 men witnessed the risen Christ. It's important for us to know this. So I'm going to close today with two verses of Scripture that I think are very important for all of us because we could be very close to a great blessing. The first, and I would invite you to look these verses up if you're a mind to. The first is Old Testament Micah, not Malachi, Micah 6:8. And the second is John 14:11. Micah 6:8 basically says, do the right thing in life and walk humbly with your God. John 14:11 basically says, even if you do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, believe in his work. And that's what we have to do when we receive this blessing. So I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And let's hope next year we will all receive the blessing we so patiently waited for. And when we do, let's do the right thing. Provide for our families, for widows, for orphans, and do good. Our next call is next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, if for some reason I'm not going to be on the call, I apologize for it. But if I'm not on within 12:02, I won't be there. We will try to get out an email and let you know if there won't be a call. We're up in the air on that, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's the holiday, and we are really, really inundated. We're trying to get things done. Certainly, if the dinar would pop between now and the end of the year, there will not be a call because we're just going to be knee-deep in a lot of work. But again, thanks so much for taking the time to listen. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and let's hope next year is the best New Year we could possibly ever imagine for ourselves, for our family, and for our loved ones. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great week.